Okay, you're on.
Okay, we just had dinner. Too many burritos. Okay, there we go. Back to Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor, Navy base in Hawaii. That's why Japan wanted to bomb it. Half of our Navy was over there. Remember, you've got California. Wait for you guys. Yeah, California, Pearl Harbor, Japan, China, Asia over here. So here's the western part of the United States. Here is Pearl Harbor, military base. Remember Hawaii, we got there for the sugar and turned them into a military base. So just like after 9/11, when those Twin Towers fell, our government started really looking into people as far as being security threats. A lot of Muslim people were put behind bars, behind barbed wire. And that's what we did to the Japanese Americans. We said, okay, you got a couple of days to put all your belongings in one bag, and we're going to pick you up and put you on the train. And over 100,000 Japanese Americans from the West Coast had to go to what was called internment camps. You can imagine what happened to their shops while they were gone. Total vandalism. You can't bring many of your belongings in one bag. So for many Japanese families, their entire livelihoods were wiped out. And when they came back after the war, or years later, a couple of years later, it didn't look good at all for them. Their shops were ruined. So let's watch it a little bit. If you can get as close as you can, Jesse.
After Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. government set up 10 internment camps across the West. They detained over 100,000 Japanese Americans perceived as a threat to the war effort. Half of those detained were children.
You know, it really wasn't that long ago. People that were in these camps, some of them are still alive, and
So many of them. In fact, Nathan is about to meet one. Betty Tyra was only 8 when her family was sent into the Heart Mountain internment camp in Wyoming.
There were 5 in our family, an older sister, a younger brother, and my parents. And each of us was allowed to take one suitcase. But it was too much for my brother and for me. So from a family of 5, we only had 3 suitcases.
wow.
Every family was issued a number.
There were 6 units in a barrack. They were non-insulated buildings.
Cold.
It wasn't even this big, but it had a window on one side and a window on the other, one incandescent light. There was no sink, no bathroom, no stove, but it was just a barren room and 5 cots.
What kind of food?
have? You know, they tried to cook rice, but it was either too soft or crunchy.
Yeah.
And lots of pork and beans. It was
Totally
not our
different.
normal diet.
Betty's family spent nearly a year in the camps.
I'm so curious, what happened to you?
We moved to Washington, D.C. I went to junior high school. High school, I graduated from the University of Maryland. You know, this war experience spurred many Japanese Americans. They did so much to prove their loyalty. They went to school and they have become very successful people in all walks of life. So from that disaster, I think that it spurred us to become even better people.
It also spurred us to become a better country. Ultimately, the U.S. government apologized to Japanese American families for the incarceration.
They do more than apologize.
Yeah, they got some financial thank you, or sorry.
Reparations.
Reparations, yes. And another thing I think is really interesting with this is that Korematsu, a Japanese guy, sued, saying, "You can't put me here. This is against my, constitutional rights." And you could probably guess what happened, just like with Schenck versus U.S. for World War One. Remember the you can't yell fire in a theater. Freedom of speech is not absolute for Schenck in World War One. Korematsu, sorry Korematsu, we're not letting you out. There's a chance that one of you guys could be a spy. I don't care how small of a chance. You're a security threat. We're leaving you in here as long as we think that you might be a threat. And the most touching part for this, for me, is that the Japanese American soldiers who are fighting in Europe, statistically, it's been found that they volunteered for more dangerous missions than any other group of Americans. I think she hit it right on the button when she was talking about, we wanted to prove our loyalty. We want to prove that we are Americans. And I don't know, it's very touching for me to think, all right, I need somebody here for a dangerous mission. Hope you don't have too many loved ones at home because you might not be coming back. Didn't they have your family in those camps back in Utah? Weren't they freezing at night? I want to volunteer, sir. So I just think that's very very touching that they would do that. Okay, next. U.S. problem. We were fighting a what? This is what Germany had the problem with in World War One. You gotta fight the Russians on this side. You gotta fight the French and the English on this side. It is a two-front war.
I knew that.
Yes. So let me ask you then, Jesse.
Uh-oh.
If you're the leader, you're President FDR, he's the commander-in-chief, got the final decision. Obviously, I'm sure he's taking a lot of advice. You got Hitler in Europe, or you have the fascist Japan in Asia. Which one do you think you're going to try to go at first? You don't want to spread out too much, so which one do you think you're going to put your first focus on? Try to beat Japan first, or try to beat Germany first?
Oh my gosh, I can't remember what happened.
Well, just guess. It's fine.
Well, I was thinking that they added themselves to the Allies in Germany to try to get Hitler but then they did go to Japan later after that. So that would be my guess.
Yep. Europe first. Let's take care of Hitler. He's the main, everything revolving around Hitler. Let's get him, then we'll take care of the Japanese. I mean, we did have the Battle of Midway we'll be talking about. That was, not that long after Pearl Harbor, 6 months after Pearl Harbor. But for the most part, most of our concentration was on beating Hitler in Europe. Then after that, we'll focus 100% on the Japanese in Asia. Okay, so put that for the times two, guys. We first try to beat Hitler, and then we'll worry about the Japanese. Number 9, Germany invades and loses in the Soviet Union. Okay. The Battle of Stalingrad is basically a big turning point. How close are you? Are you getting this close?
Yeah, you could see the TP thing.
Yeah, TP is for turning point. On the next page, on the other side of this, we're going to have a bunch of...
It's not clear what the other red thing is.
No, they don't have to see that. I told them earlier, that's just my notes. They don't have to copy that.
Okay.
So Germany invades and loses in the Soviet Union. And it's interesting, Hitler had made the non-aggression pact. Where is it? Number 3. Remember? Stalin. I won't try to invade you if you don't try to invade me. Non-aggression pact. Right? Oh, Bodhi.
Oh, I was going to show Bodhi. There, Bodhi went off.
Hey, Bodhi.
Oh.
So, both Stalin and Hitler obviously can't be trusted, but Hitler is the one who broke his promise. The same month, almost the same day. Let me see exactly the day. What was it? I don't have it, but I think it was June 22nd or 24th. It was almost the exact same day, just by 2 days off, that when Napoleon tried to invade Russia, Hitler did it a day or two before or after started the same time, tried to invade the Soviet Union. Now it's not called Russia anymore because the Communist Revolution is called the Soviet Union. But Napoleon and now Hitler trying to invade the Soviet Union. And what do you think got both Napoleon and Hitler?
The weather.
The weather, the cold. It's no coincidence that the Battle of Stalingrad, February 1943, turning point in the war. One thing, so many Russians were lost, 1.5 million soldiers. The Battle of Stalingrad is the biggest, most deadly battle in the history of humans. Think about that. This is terrible with this virus. About 50,000 people have died. 1.5 million in one battle. Obviously, it's taking months and months and months. There were no prisoners of war either. For Stalin and the Soviets, if you deserted, say, I can't take this anymore, I'm too freezing, I'm going home. The second they see that you're missing, they go and kill your family. And then when you get home, they're there and they kill you too. So because so many people were deserting, they didn't just kill you. The soldiers knew that their own families would get killed. No prisoners of war. You don't take a prisoner, you just kill them there. That's one of the reasons, 1.5 million.
Is that for both
Both sides. They were
both
both
sides.
totally brutal with each other. And the thing with losing the Battle of Stalingrad, the German people had built Hitler up into being a god. We talked about it earlier with the part one. It was a cult. Fascist cult. This person can do no wrong. Heil Hitler. Girls were writing him letters. Please, Hitler, please let me have one of your babies. I'll make you a good soldier. We've got teenage girls brainwashed into thinking this guy's a god. Everyone wanted to just help him cause. We're going to rule the world. And then when he loses, what? Father? Can't believe we just lost the Battle of Stalingrad. What? We don't lose? How does a god lose? Hitler's? We're going to take over the world. So, and also the soldiers started losing respect because we got German soldiers. They're walking in 10 degrees below zero, even worse. It was so bad that the tanks couldn't even start because of the gas would freeze. Walking in socks, their boots are so worn off. And we're getting back to Hitler. Look, they've got to surrender. They're dying. They're freezing to death. He would not let them surrender. So people were just butchered. So I think a lot of the Germans started, and it's no coincidence that after this, 3 times, Germans tried to assassinate Hitler. The most famous one is they put a bomb by his desk, but lucky for him, the desk was about this thick of wood. So when it blew, he fell over. And by this time, it should be known about Hitler. He was getting injected by his doctor with all kinds of drugs. If you look at his hand, he's starting to shake in the back, and he's basically a drug addict. Okay, so that's the Battle of Stalingrad times 4. Put something there about what I just talked about. No POWs, all that, okay, for the times 4. It's a huge turning point in the war, because now look, now Hitler's got to worry about, now because Hitler was foolish enough to try to invade the Soviet Union, now he's got a 2-front war. And think of it like this. So now that the Soviet Union's starting to come in, it won't be long before D-Day, where the Allies, with America's help, Dwight D. Eisenhower became president, was the leader of D-Day. They take back France, and now you got Americans, the British, the French coming this way. You got the Soviet Union coming this way. So for them to lose this war, this battle, now Hitler and Germany, they're going to start they lost their momentum. He lost a lot of respect.
What year was that?
That was exactly 1943, February 1943, and about a year and a half or so, he's going to be dead. Okay, next section, total war on the home front. Home front means what you're doing back here while your loved ones or while your country's fighting somewhere else. We talked about it before with World War I. Factories start working 24/7. Are you close enough, Jess, where they can actually see
They could
the
see it,
letters?
yeah.
Women. It's hard to write without touching it. I don't want to mess up. African
see it.
Americans. What's that?
Yeah, I could see it.
Just like in World War I, women and African Americans started getting a lot of jobs in the factories. And a lot of the African Americans in this country started moving up north because that's where the factories were. So remember, we had the Great Migration of the 1920s after World War I. A lot of African Americans moving from the south where they were sharecroppers and before that slaves, many of them. And now they're going to move up north, more jobs and hopefully less racism. And now the 1940s also, because the war, Great Migration of African Americans up north. Okay. Let's look at some of the, 1941, the War Powers Act. That's in the news now with President Trump. He's using the War Powers Act, like, the virus, looking at it as a war against the virus, to tell some of the companies, now look, we need your help. You can't make this product. You got to make these masks. You got to make these ventilators. He's using the War Powers Act to take more power than probably a president, obviously by the Constitution, should be taking. The Defense Production Act, that's what that is, as far as the government being able to tell companies, look, we need you to make this now. Okay? So put that for the times too. Food is rationed. Adam, why don't you come act this one out a little bit? Come over here, buddy. So here's my son, Adam. So Adam, why don't you say, Daddy, Mommy, I'm so happy. It's going to be my birthday on Friday. You can sit down here and be all happy about it. See,
It's actually Ori's birthday this Saturday.
It has to be Ori's birthday. Maybe he should be acting out. I'm so happy, and I can't wait. I'm going to have the best cake and the best burgers. Okay, something like that. Ready? Action.
Daddy, Mommy, I'm so happy. We're gonna have the best pasta. It should be so fun.
What about the meat and the cake?
Well, I'm vegetarian.
You wouldn't be vegetarian in 1940s.
Oh, okay.
Just do the. Take two.
Wait, who's saying the meat and the cake? You are?
This guy.
Are you trying to get him to say the meat and the cake?
Can't wait to have my burgers and my cake. Ready? Take two.
They were vegetarians at that time.
I'm sure some, but come on. The average.
Daddy, Mommy, I'm so happy for my birthday. We're gonna have burgers, cake.
Son, we need to talk to you about something.
That's how they talk in the 40s.
Yeah, that's how we talked in the 40s. This is how my dad talked. Have you ever heard of rationing,
No,
Billy?
no.
Rationing is like from the word ratio. Each person gets a ratio, a certain amount of something. Get these little stamps. I'm afraid we used up all our sugar for the month. We won't be able to make you a birthday cake.
Okay.
Okay. You're supposed to add to seem sad about it. Oh no!
Raphael, where are you
No
when we
cake.
need you, man?
Oh.
Cam.
All right, he's looking sad.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Adam. So that's the rationing of food. And the reason they had the rationing is to provide more resources for the military. Usually when I look here, because it's straight from the test. As always, everything on the notes is on the test, which will be not this Friday, but next Friday. So, to provide more resources for the troops. For example, even silk. if you were a woman walking around with silk stockings, there's a good chance people might call you unpatriotic. Because where are you supposed to donate your silk stockings to? The government, so they could help make parachutes or other items with the silk. My mom, I remember her talking about how she would have pots and pans. People would just bring their pots and pans and bring it to like the Times Square or the village green area of the town. Big, huge piles of pots and pans, because now they're going to melt that down and make whatever out of it. Weapons, tanks, whatever they can. Okay? So total war, meaning everything's geared towards winning the war. And like we talked about before, war bonds. War bonds is a piece of paper. Adam, come on over one more time, buddy, if you don't mind. Say, oh, I'm so happy. I can't wait to have that bicycle for my birthday. I can't have the burger and the cake, but I'm going to get that bicycle, aren't I, Daddy? Okay, ready? Action.
I can't wait to get that bicycle.
You're over the sugar. You're okay with that? Not having the burger. That's good of you. We have to talk about that bicycle, though.
Why?
I got you this instead, buddy.
Paper? $100? For a ball? I don't want a piece of I don't want a piece of I don't want a piece of paper. I want a bicycle.
What are you, a commie?
Communist.
Oh wait, commies on our side. Probably wouldn't say that. What are you, a Nazi? You on Hitler's side? I wouldn't say that. It's my kidding. Yeah, I'm just making the point. This is a piece of paper. Throw it down.
I don't want a piece of paper.
Listen, I'm helping those boys who are fighting against Hitler and the Nazis. I gave the government $100. They gave me this piece of paper. It's a war bond. At the end of... Honey, we need to do something about this kid's attitude. See, he's rolling his eyes. After the war is over, we'll cash this in. They'll probably give us $105. We'll get a little interest. Then you can buy your bicycle. I can probably buy 5 bicycles with this. This is better than a bicycle.
$100 back then was a lot of money.
Yeah. I remember getting a bicycle when I was growing up for $31. It was a pretty good bike.
A long time ago.
Let's give Adam a hand, everybody. If you want to make any comments about Adam's performance, when there's a comment section on the Google Classroom. Might be fun for... Okay. And the last thing, as far as the total war, it's not like it hasn't happened before, but with total war, civilians, the fact is, guys, that about 60 million people died in World War II. 60 million, some people say even more, depending on if you count the war beginning in 1937 with the Sino-Japanese War, Second Sino-Japanese War, when China was invaded by Japan. If you count that, it's even tens and tens, many, many more, probably 100 million. Jasmine, 60 million for sure, probably 80 million or so. How many of you think out of the 60 million were civilians, people with not uniforms on, with no uniforms on?
70%.
Really good.
I don't know.
40 million civilians, 20 million. What is that? 66%. Yeah.
Oh, good guess.
Very good.
Terrible.
Guess. It's terrible.
Oh.
It's so easy just to, 60 million
It's
died.
almost finished, by the way. 1 more minute.
Okay, perfect timing then. So guys, we're going to stop here. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and Jasmine and I will do the other side. So please get this on time, okay? Our new system is if you don't have stuff in on time, every day you don't have it is 10 points off. So hopefully you guys are getting this stuff on time. We're doing pretty good. We've only got maybe 6 students that haven't handed in homework. I think it's a really good percentage, but some of you are getting it late. I gave you decent grades, but from now on, you need to show the discipline and college-bound attitude that you've had and get things in on time. All right, guys. I'll see you for part number 4. Take care.